Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Edge of Liberty right here on the SHR Media Network. It is April 16th, 2025. Are you a tax dodger yet? Did you file for your extension? I see you out there dodging your taxes, you bastards. Lot to talk about this evening. Dear God, man, can the Democrats just hook up to the wrong wagon and run that friggin' thing into a wall? We'll talk about that in a few minutes, but I really want to take a walk down memory lane. You know how sometimes, like, even though I equate it to like smoking, what I'm about to do next, even though it was horrible for me, I still miss it sometimes, right? I just do. I think a lot of smokers do that. You know it's bad for you. You know it's terrible for you. 99% of the time, somebody walks by you smoking a cigarette, and you're just kind of like, that's not great. But then there's that 1%, usually alcohol's involved, where you're like, dude, I would walk 500 miles to quote the song, just to have a cigarette. And that's what this is. Because, man, this video I'm about to share, it really just reminds me of how much we've lost comedy-wise.
And I was only going in fourth grade. And I remember seeing the kids going by at the time called colored kids on a bus going by. They never turned right to go to Claymont High School. I wondered why. Asked my mom, why? So in Delaware, they're not allowed to go to school, in public school, with white kids, honey. That sparked my sense of outrage as a kid.
First of all, we all know that never happened, right? But it's good to see old Joe. Isn't it good to see old Joe? Like, I mean, I'll be honest. Look at this picture. Doesn't he just look like the absolute epitome of, well, look at that look on his face. He is just dialed. I'll tell you, that guy is seriously 2 degrees away from being in a morgue. That's about it. 2 degrees. Oh man. But I did miss it. I miss the comedy of Biden. You know, years ago on my old show, Sackheads Radio, we had a segment called What Would Joe Biden Do? And we would think we would come up with these situations, or we would take a national situation that was actually happening. Iran, you name it, whatever. And then we'd ask what Joe Biden did or would do. And then we would go around the room and kind of discuss it. And then come back next week and see if we were right. And usually the most ridiculous thing. Hey, everyone's jumping in the chat room. Thank you so much. Usually the most ridiculous thing we came up with was Joe Biden's suggestion. So I'm glad to see that carried on through the years. If you are itching to chat. Let's just say you're just watching on X, you're watching on Twitch, you're watching on Facebook, and you want to chat with everyone who's in the chat room, and you want your little name to come up so you can actually be part of the conversation. Go to YouTube, search SHR Media. You'll see this show is live. You can click on it, then jump in that live chat and participate. It's the best place to chat from on my show. That's usually where everybody is. Every once in a while, you get a Twitch chat or I'll get a Facebook chat, but usually it's on YouTube. So let's just get right into the story of the gosh. Story of the week. Here we go. I'm sorry, folks. I love the fact. Oh, well, what happened there? There it is. M2 is absolutely hysterical. If you don't follow her on X, you really should. But Kilmar Armando Arbego Garcia, bring him home, and she put he is home. This story has sparked so much bizarre controversy. Ricky Robinson's in the chat room as well. Thank you, Ricky. Mission Ready Men, Big E, BZ, the bloviating one. Jersey Joe, I saw him sneak through there as well in the chat room. So chat room's starting to fill up. Thank you, folks. Appreciate it. So when the story first hit, there was confusion because at first nobody wanted to talk about the fact that this guy was a criminal alien, illegal, if you will. And then it's like, well, he was illegal, but he wasn't really like one of those bad illegals, right? And then you hear all of a sudden the senator from Maryland, Chris Van Hollen, is like, I'm going to go to El Salvador and I'm going to bring him home. And you're like, what in the absolute hell is going on right now? Why is this guy? Look, if he was an American citizen and they ripped him out and brought him back, yeah, obviously as a cause for concern. But he was not. They covered him in the news as a father from Maryland. And then we find out through Fox News and many, many other folks that he actually was not a nice guy. He actually was the opposite of a nice guy. And I'm going to go with this first because to me, this is almost more important than the gang affiliation. And only because this is from somebody who allegedly he loved. This is the statement of his wife who made an allegation to the district court that he abused her and that she was afraid of him. I told him to give me his card to pay for it, and he got angry, started insulting me, and on it. I could read it all, but I'll be here all night. But the long and short is, with the baby there, he got violent with his ex-wife. So strike number one, that you're just completely an unredeemable asshole, right? Abuse towards women is like, that is first ballot Hall of Fame for assholes, if you ask me and many others. So then it's like, okay, well, he's a spousal abuser, and this is terrible. And while this is going on, Chris Van Hollen, the senator from Maryland, says, I'm off to El Salvador. And he gets to El Salvador and he gives this speech. Where is it? I have it here somewhere. That's going to be funny when I play that later. He gives this speech, and it's long. It's 12:44 minutes. And he essentially says that he's, asking blah, 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 blah. And he's talking to the president and vice president of El Salvador, and he's going to get his citizen back, except he's not a citizen. It blows my mind even still. And we saw this with Democrats and BLM. We saw this with Democrats in the immigration argument a couple of years ago. Look, the last election, the immigration was the biggest concern for voters. The biggest. And Democrats still haven't learned, hey, maybe I should just say nothing at all. If you're Chris Van Hollen, pardon me, and you say nothing at all, you are 10 times better than doing what you are doing. And then He gives that whole little speech. The DOJ then released all the documentation that they had, which I have right here, showing that he was a validated gang member of MS-13. MS-13 is that really, 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 really bad Central American gang in which they like to chop up people on top of millions of other ways of violence. They're just horrifically violent gang. I remember years ago working in law enforcement when they've really started to show up in the East Coast more and more. We got warnings, and the warnings for dealing with MS-13, Lost Wanderers in the chat room. We can start the show now. Thank you. Have continued. I still have numerous friends that are in law enforcement. They still get the warnings from MS-13. They will fight and target peace officers. They will fight and target people who are not involved in gangs. They do not care. And this man is a validated MS-13 gang member. And he still somehow became the sweetheart of the left. MRC put this out. This is from all three of the major news outlets, ABC, CBS, NBC. He got 64 minutes of coverage in 57 seconds in the last, I think this was 24 hours. Rachel Marin, who is a mother of 5, also in Maryland, who Chris Van Hollen has never mentioned her name in a tweet, got 0. The killer was convicted today, by the way, in less than 2 hours. Her mother gave an amazing speech at the White House. But they're still just jacked up on this guy who is not even a good person. And then we find out that the El Salvador government officials essentially told Van Hollen to go pound sand. Go pound sand. We ain't doing anything about it. But what's even funnier about Chris Van Hollen going down there, and this actually, Johnny Maga posted this, and this was from 2017. Senator Chris Van Hollen said, it is important to go after gangs like MS-13, but it is an insult to decency and common sense for dreamers to be targeted for deportation. This dude was not a dreamer. He was, as Trump called him long ago, he's one of the bad hombres. He is not a good person. And he is not somebody who should be in this country. And again, he is illegal. And then after meeting with El Salvador officials, here's what Chris Van Hollen said to the press, who, again, I will tell you this, you know this. This has nothing to do with this shitbag, Kilmar Garcia. This has everything to do with Chris Van Hollen trying to get some press. And press he got.
So I asked the vice president if I could meet with Mr. Abrego Garcia. And he said, well, you need to make earlier provisions to go visit SCOTUS. I said, I'm not interested at this moment in taking a tour of SCOTUS. I just want to meet with Mr. Abrego Garcia. He said he was not able to make that happen. He said he need a little more time. I asked him if I came back next week, whether I'd be able to see Mr. Abrego Garcia. He said he couldn't promise that either.
Fellas and ladies, have you ever, I don't know. Have you ever been hitting on somebody in a bar and after a little while you finally get the message that they're just not into you? It happened to all of us. Not everybody's perfect. I know outside of say like BZ and the Lost Wanderer, the rest of us have dealt with that shame. You're being told, pal, you're being told you're not wanted, and you cannot for the life of you take the hint. By the way, thank you to Cheetah for being in the chat room and joining the chatters.
So I asked him if I could get on the phone, either video phone or just a phone, and talk to Mr. Abrego Garcia. So I could just ask him how he's doing so I could report back to his family. He said he could not arrange that. He said maybe if the American embassy were to ask, maybe that could happen. So I will certainly ask the American embassy to ask the government of El Salvador to connect us by phone. I asked him, how about his family? How can he talk to his wife so that she can hear his voice? I let him know that the family has requested that. He said he was not sure whether he could make that happen. So we have an unjust situation here.
Why is it unjust? That's the part that kills me. Why is this unjust? Okay, he's an illegal. He was an MS-13 gang member. He was abusive to his wife. I'm pretty sure he had an arrest record, and he was deported. What's the problem? Somebody explain to me what the friggin' problem is. And they can't explain to you what the problem is, because the problem is simply they are looking for anything they can to go after the immigration policy and the border policy. That's all this is. This is a showboat. That's why Van whatever his name is, that loser, was scrambling to get his ticket to El Salvador. Scrambling. He couldn't get there fast enough. So fast, in fact, all the details about this guy hadn't come out yet. They had not yet released the gang validation. They had not yet released the restraining. Oh, by the way, he also violated the restraining order that his wife got against him. And in her statement that you saw, that was for the restraining order. He violated that restraining order and got arrested. But they didn't wait for that. They do. Democrats are as bad as mainstream media when it comes to running with a story before they know all the facts. The facts are pointing to the fact that this guy is a POS. He's no good. And Van Hollen just running down there. A man from Maryland was taken. He's not a man from Maryland. And why didn't you talk about the woman from Maryland whose life was taken by an illegal? And that's all this is, though. This is, as BZ says, kabuki theater. Kabuki theater by the left to show why these border policies are bad, why deportation is bad, why these poor, innocent, just trying to get a job, illegal should be left alone, except they're not poor and innocent. Some of them are. Said that before. But crossing into, contrary to what you see on social media and all of the lawyers that show up on social media that aren't lawyers, all of the legal experts who show up on social media that have never once spent any time in a law class or in a court or reading law, they're going to tell you, well, crossing into the country isn't illegal because there's a civil punishment as well as a criminal punishment. But there's still a criminal punishment. That's like saying, speeding isn't necessarily a crime unless you are operating to endanger at a speed that is unsafe. And that is, in fact, a crime. Both are true, but that doesn't mean one outdoes the other one and makes it go away. And I see them all on social media. Oh, he's not illegal because it's just a civil violation. Wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong. It's just absolutely ridiculous. And we saw this with BLM. You remember when BLM was running and they were burning down cities and the mostly peaceful protest and yada, yada, yada. Democrats were right there with them. And when all of us were saying, wait a minute, a lot of this stuff doesn't seem to be what it is. No, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. And then you found out that BLM was money laundering and all this other stuff the leaders were doing, yada, yada, yada. And it wasn't doing any of the stuff it said it was going to do. All it did was make people angry and burn down cities over obvious untruths. Right? Remember how they told you, oh, what's the kid from Wisconsin there? I can't even think of his name. The kid who shot the three Democrats, and all three of them were either sex offenders or criminals. Kyle Rittenhouse. Remember when they told you that Kyle Rittenhouse did what he did because the victims were black? That was the news right off the bat. And then as it came out, well, they weren't black, but they were supporting black people. It's essentially the same thing, yada, yada, yada. This is exactly what they do. Chat room, man, you guys are awesome tonight. Thank you so much. There's so much great information going on in the chat room. For those who don't know, Cheetah is a lawyer. BZ is a retired peace officer with like 152 years. Trust me, if you go through and you pay attention to the chat room, you'll learn something. And then you have all the other geniuses that are in there. Oh, is Joe still in there? All right. So geniuses plus one. Joe, that's for saying you never turned down at a bar, pal. So all of this is going on, and Democrats are just, and the mainstream media is trying to go nuts with it, right? And they're trying to just push this narrative. That's just not, order and it's just not true. And Stephen Miller, who has just been a hammer when it comes to putting the press and media in place, Stephen Miller comes out and lays everybody out, lays waste to the narrative. And that's right here.
A withholding order. Do you know the difference? Any of you, please. Do you? Well, we're not in the government. But so you didn't spend it. You couldn't even spend.
Did you hear that? I'm going to play that again because it's pretty funny. Stephen Miller is asking, do any of you know the difference?
Do you know the difference between a deportation order and a withholding order? Do you know the difference? Any of you, please. Do you? Well, we're not in the government. But so you didn't spend it. You couldn't even.
Well, we're not in the government. That's what that one reporter says. Yeah, but you've been commenting like you've been a legal expert on all of this. All of your people has. Big E said it too. I'll get to Big E eventually. He bigfooted me last week on a point I was trying to make. I'll get to him, Joe. You know I'm equal opportunity. And well, we're not in the government. Then shut up and just report.
You couldn't even spend 72 hours over the weekend learning the distinction, even though you've been writing and talking about it this whole time.
Stephen, we're not going anywhere. On the gold cards.
Just raise your hand. Does any of you know the difference between a deportation order and a withholding order?
How do you know that he's a member of MS-13? The White House has repeatedly said, according to intelligence.
According to our government and his government. In other words, his government has confirmed based on their own intelligence that he's a member of MS-13. First of all, did you just speak that he's an illegal alien?
Did you hear that? Our government and their government, meaning El Salvador, has validated that he is a member of MS-13. Just two governments, that's all. Just two governments.
No. Okay. Do you dispute that as an illegal alien, we have the right to deport him? He went through the legal process. So what I'm getting from this conversation, which is educational for me, is that not one person in the media knows the difference between a deportation order and a withholding order.
He is just, I love this. I absolutely love watching mainstream media take it to the face repeatedly. And Stephen Miller is verbally grinding his hips into their face as he's doing it.
Is that a fair statement? You're learning about this all for the first time right now? I guess so. Okay. So the deportation order means the judge has said he must be deported from the country. He has no right to remain here any longer. He must be removed from the country. So his only options are to be deported to his home country or another country. That's it. There's no other option. He doesn't get to stay here. He doesn't get to live here. He has no future here. He has no right to be here. He's an illegal alien. So when you keep saying return, because you've been spun up by the open borders advocates, you all seem to be operating under the illusion that he would be able to come to the United States and just continue to live here illegally. That's not an option available to him. His only choices in life are to live in El Salvador or to live in another country. That's it. There's no other option, legally or otherwise, because he came to our country illegally.
This is amazing.
Do you understand that?
Stephen, can I ask, as a matter of policy, does the administration believe that immigration judges have
nothing to push back on what he said, right? She went for the policy after this, not on this specific case. Why didn't she ask about this specific case? Why didn't she push back? Because it was game over. Everything Stephen Miller said right there ends the conversation. It ends the argument. It was not difficult. And they keep rolling out evidence on X. AG Bondi put out Yep, here it is. Just in case you needed more evidence, here you go. This is from Prince George Police Department in Maryland, where he lived. And this is the gang interview sheet, the gang validation sheet. Every department has a version of this, and most departments do. And what happens is officers are trained through numerous aspects of identifying gang members. What they say, some of them will outright admit that they're gang members, and you document that. Tattoos, clothing, could be shoes, it could be a rag hanging or a bandana. There's a million different things. Obviously, tattoos. And Pam Bondi released this. On 3/28/2019, at approximately 14:27 hours, detective with the Hyattsville City Police observed 4 individuals loitering in a parking lot at Home Depot at 3301 West Highway in Hyattsville, Maryland. Detective approached. 2 of the individuals reached into their waistbands, discovered several unknown items into the car, and he goes on and on. But he identifies everybody specifically. He identifies why through the tattoos. He identifies the gang culture, yada, yada, yada. It goes on and on. The paperwork is there. In other words, could be the bull's hat. In other words, and I did not, Jersey Joe, thank you. I did not know that specifically. Another CI identified him with his gang name and rank. So there's no argument left for the left anymore to say he wasn't a gang member, he wasn't a violent person, yada, yada, yada. When the person, and look, I know there's going to be there have been plenty of restraining orders that have been issued that haven't been deserved. But what I want to see now is the left push back on his wife's restraining order and her allegations of violence and defend him even more. I want to see the left do that because they're just this close. They're just this close to saying that, well, she's probably a liar. And then we don't believe all women anymore, right? That's over. This guy was a piece of shit. And you know what's sad about it, too? This tells you just how short-sighted and how dumb the Democrats are and how much they just want to be able to yell about immigration. There's probably numerous amounts of people in this country who are here illegally that they could use as a much better poster boy, poster girl, poster child for their pro-immigration stance. But they're not smart enough to do that. No. They run out. The first time they get something they think they can dig their teeth into, they run out. And then they do what the Democrats always do. They show their ass. Chris Van Hollen is a walking ass right now. The best part is he's still in El Salvador. He can't even walk this back or make it go away or disappear. He can't even do information has been presented that now I need to look into this more, yada, 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 and then, do the little political sidestep and run away. No, he has to own this now. The same man who couldn't speak Rachel Marin's name has to owning this guy. It's glorious from a political standpoint, but it's also angry, loud, and infuriating. It pisses me off that you had a mother of 5 who was taken by an illegal who the Democrats won't even utter her name. The party of say his name, say her name, they won't say her name. They won't touch it. But they'll fawn all over this guy like he's a true victim. Joe Biden's FBI ordered release of Kilmar Garcia, the MS-13 man deported to El Salvador after he was stopped by Tennessee Highway Patrol in 2022 for trafficking 7 individuals. I hadn't known that either, but that is not shocking to me at all. And by the way, MS-13, they're like Trace Guava. I know I said that wrong. Let it go. Let it go, I said. They're brutal. They're brutal. And your little local neighborhood gangs are nothing compared to these guys. So, yeah, Democrats, keep fighting for them. Keep fighting for them. Show everyone your ass. The midterm is going to be coming up here soon. We're about to be full-blown midterm season. Please, please keep hitching up to these ridiculous carts and running face first into a fucking wall. Because you deserve it. You deserve the blowback that you will get from this. It is amazing to me. And it just makes me so happy to see the Democrats implode like this. I'll tell you what, 20% obviously wasn't a low enough bar for them. So maybe what? By midterms, 10%? What's their approval rating? I know it's lower than herpes right now. Gonna take a break. Please do me a favor, like and subscribe wherever you're watching from. Like the episode specifically. Also, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Thank you so much to our friends over at KLRN for the simulcast this evening. I see Rowdy Rick, one of the most busiest men in internet broadcast. He's running amok right now. He's in the chat room earlier. Check them out. We'll be back right.
Hello, friends. Do you have a moment so that we may discuss our Lord and Savior Minarchy? No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name's Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRNradio. You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at KLRNradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KLRNradio.
Attention, all patriotic women of faith. Yep, I'm talking to you, sis. Are you looking for high-quality, super soft apparel that reflects your love for country and your devotion to God? Look no further than Carry Girl Gear. Picture this. You rocking a tee so soft it's like being hugged by a cloud, all while showing off your love for God and country. Sounds dreamy, right? Well, welcome to reality, babes, because that's what we're all about here at Carry Girl Gear. We specialize in super soft tees, tanks, and more, designed specifically for the strong, patriotic woman who proudly wants to carry their message of faith and freedom. When you shop with us, you're not just getting a t-shirt. You're joining a community of like-minded women who are proud to wear their beliefs straight on their tees. So whether you're sipping sweet tea on the porch or leading the charge for faith and freedom, do it in a Carry Girl tee. Because life's too short for stiff, boring tees. CarryGirl.com, where faith and freedom meets fashion.
Welcome back to the final 30 here on the Edge of Liberty and the SHR Media Network. Hey, do me a favor. Tuesday and Thursday nights, 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 on the East Coast. Check out my good friend, the Bloviating Zeppelin on BZ's Bobcat Saloon right here on SHR Media. Tuesday and Thursdays afternoon, Mission Ready Men, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 on the East Coast, with my good friend Big E, who is going to get a verbal shellacking here very shortly. And then Monday and Friday nights, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 on the East Coast, Reaver of Common Sense. Check them out, as well as our friends over at KLRN. And of course, you can catch me every Monday and Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 on the East Coast. Hey, if you're wondering why you haven't heard anything more about the attack on Pennsylvania Governor Shapiro's house, well, this could be why. Turns out he is a Marxist and a Free Palestine activist, and that explains everything you need to know as to why that story will go by the wayside. It will disappear. It will be gone. They won't talk much about it. You might get a page 15 at some point, but it won't last for long. I want to talk a little bit in California because this, man, I'll tell you one thing. If there's one thing the California government is really good at doing, it's just shooting itself in the foot. Last year, Phillips 66 said that they were going to close down the refinery. And by October this year, their refinery down in LA. Now, Valero notified California regulators that it intends to either make idle, restructure, or stop operations altogether as at its oil refinery in Benicia, California, by April 2026. Now, you might say, "Oh, it's only two of these facilities." Why is that a big deal? Because California is a closed circuit fuel state. In other words, they're so specific on their blends and how it's made and it has to come from within the state. You now have two, and I think there's what, 11 left or something like that. You think gas prices are high now, and all of this comes from the decisions that the California Air Resource Board has made on elected bureaucrats, once again, making life miserable for anybody in the petroleum field in California, i.e., making gasoline or whatever. So now gas is going to be even more freaking expensive because California legislatures cannot help but do two things: ruin the lives of Californians and jerk each other off. That's all they're good for. That is all they're good for. Hey, we talked about this on Monday night. As Rick is going to say, space lesbians. We're talking about the Blue Origin flight where all these rich women, Gayle King and Katy Perry and yada, 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 paid all this exorbitant money to say they went to space. By the way, that capsule is awfully clean for something that came into space, huh? Yeah, that's neither here nor there. Gayle King was upset that people were downplaying the importance of this mission. She's mad that people were pushing back that they called themselves astronauts, which they're not friggin' astronauts. It's the most ridiculous for the estrogen flight. It's the most ridiculous thing to call yourself an astronaut. You went through a few weeks of like egress training in and out, how to strap yourself in, and I'm sure there was like some sort of like health screening. They probably went through a couple of simulated takeoffs. Okay, well, I can do that at a local museum. They have simulated takeoff machines there, so that doesn't make you an astronaut. You went into what I believe is the lowest level of orbit for 8 minutes. That it's a high-priced roller coaster. Please stop diminishing the term astronaut and taking it away from those people who are actually frigging astronauts. I highlighted Johnny Kim the other night, an actual astronaut. 2 days of training. There it is, 2 days of training. Right? Johnny Kim's an actual astronaut. All the people up on the space station, astronauts. The two that the Biden administration left stuck up there, Sonny and Butch, real astronauts. These two are these, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever. Celebrities who are rich. One of them, by the way, is Jeff Bezos' girlfriend. So, you know how that is. Like, oh, okay, honey, I'll let you go on the flight. We'll ring the bell. Oh, let's ring the bell just like all the other astronauts do. You're diminishing what an astronaut actually is. You were a guest. You didn't fly it. You didn't monitor the operations inside. You didn't control it. You didn't have a mission specialty. You didn't have a mission other than look like morons, scream a lot, and not die. And Gayle King's upset about how we're astronauts. She said something. What was the quote? She was like, "Oh, well, in the astronauts. Oh, I know that's just what we call ourselves," or something like that. It's like, you're not a friggin' astronaut. Look, you build one house. You're not a carpenter. You ride in a space dildo. Sorry, ship. You are not an astronaut. I'm sorry. Is it cool? Is it exciting for them? Yes. If that was me and I was on it, I'd be excited for me too. That's okay. Right? If she just said like, "Oh man, that was such a rush and such a good time and it was really fun to do it and I'm glad I got that experience," and walked away, okay, cool. I don't care that they're letting rich people go into lower orbit. It's the same flight that John Glenn did. Yeah, back in the 60s when it was actually dangerous. I'm not saying this is completely without danger, but the threat's a little bit different. John Glenn didn't know if he was going to implode inside there. It's not the same. Stop. Please stop celebrating celebrities doing mediocre things and treating them like they're awesome. And I actually have to applaud social media for once because Alan Shepard, that's who it was. Alan Shepard, not John Glenn. I'm sorry. Alan Shepard is who she likened herself to. Social media has been brutal on this flight. And again, it has everything to do with how it was presented. Not that they did it. Look, if they just said this is going to be cool and fun, like I said, okay, great. If they landed, that was like, man, this is cool. Great. But when you land and you kiss the ground, you were up in space for 8 minutes. When you're talking about it like you were the first person to spacewalk or land on the moon, you're not the first women in space. And let me tell you something, all the other women that went to space before you were actually astronauts. They trained their entire life for it. The first crime that we know of that was committed in space was committed by a woman. So women have been in space already. You can research that. It's a fact. We know the difference between astronauts and joyriders. And you're joyriders. And there's nothing you can say or do that is going to change that opinion. And the more you press back against it, the bigger assholes you look like. Plain and simple. You just look like assholes. Because it was, in fact, nothing more than a ride. Oh, let's see. Yes. Judge Boasberg. Remember when we thought we were just done with this guy and the Supreme Court essentially said, yeah, you don't have any right to rule what you're ruling. Kate Upton did 17 parabolas. She spent nearly 6.5 minutes in 0G. Did she call herself an astronaut? I didn't know that. I had no idea. Lost Wanderer. So thank you. Thank you. Empower Women, reading some of the chat. For sycophanting Oprah, getting fake boobs. Yeah, it just, oh man. And Kate Upton did look way, way better. And it insults the other female astronauts that have actually done something before them, that have spacewalked, that have had a mission, that have performed scientific acts. That's what bothers me. It's dumbing down the people who are really the professionals, the ones who've dedicated their whole life to get there. It's an insult to real astronauts. And I know none of the astronauts will probably say this, but it is. It's an insult to every astronaut who actually went to space. And they should be embarrassed. Anyhow, back to what I was saying. Judge Boasberg, remember we thought we were done with that guy? He was the guy who told Trump to turn the planes around and it didn't happen, yada, yada, yada. And then the Supreme Court turned around and said, oh yeah, by the way, you really didn't have a right to rule on this anyhow. So anything you say is just kind of useless. So after SCOTUS made that ruling, Judge Boasberg held the Trump administration in contempt of court, criminal contempt, not even civil. According to the judge, he found probable cause to hold the Trump administration in criminal contempt for willfully violating his March 15th, 2025 order to pause deportation of alleged Venezuelan gang members, Criminal contempt typically involves punitive measures for deliberate disobedience to the court as opposed to civil, which can compel compliance or remedy harm. So what can he do? Well, nothing really. He can refer for prosecution, of course, as Biff BZ just pointed out. That's not going to happen. And before everybody starts whining, oh, she's not doing it. Eric Holder refused to prosecute himself after he was impeached by Congress. So just remember that. He can issue a show clause order, blah. He can impose sanctions indirectly, okay. He can clarify or issue an order or refer to a higher court. But he's limited because of that Supreme Court ruling. It weakens his authority. So there's not much that can go through this, but instead of just going away, and by the way, we all know he's a leftist. He's a huge Democrat leftist. So this is his reasoning for doing what he's doing. He's not doing it because he's standing, and I talked about this a couple weeks ago. He's not doing this because he's standing by the law and he's this advocate for law and order and he just believes in what's right is right. No, he's doing this because he's a leftist and he hates Trump. As I said a few weeks ago, it's once again kabuki theater. This contempt of court that he held the administration in does absolutely nothing whatsoever. Nothing. Other wonderful news that happened this week, and BZ said in the chat, Dershowitz stated Boasberg can refer all he wants, but he's not the enforcer of anything. Correct. Let's see. Oh, back to the launch. Haley, a member of the Inspirational 4 launch, had a prosthetic leg, was a member of the Inspiration 4. She had big word I can't say and ended up at the PA at St. Jude's. An illness. I was just going to absolutely kill it if I tried to say it. Sorry. BZ said he's fangless, stupid, and embarrassment to the courts. Agreed. Fun fact, this coming from Cheetah the lawyer. They should have brought the case into a Fed court in Texas. The ACLU just jumped in on the first DC advocate judge they could find. Correct. They just knew where to file to get the judges that they wanted. Used to happen a lot more with the Ninth Circuit. Doesn't happen as much. Still does happen though. Other wonderful news as we have 14 minutes left and I got a couple more stories I want to get to. The Trump administration is asking the IRS to revoke Harvard's tax-exempt status. Oh, for a lot of people that don't know, Harvard is a nonprofit technically. And the Trump administration, because Harvard is being Harvard and they refuse to do a bunch of things, and the Trump administration took money away. And now he's asking them to take their tax exempt status away. That would be gorgeous, wouldn't it? Wouldn't that be absolutely beautiful? By the way, before you feel bad for Harvard, they have a $65 billion endowment sitting there collecting dust. They do nothing with. Why do they do nothing with it? Because they get so much federal money. One of the richest universities in the country. And by the way, I don't think any private university should be tax exempt. I said this earlier in a chat and somebody was like, you know why? It's because they're not for profit. They have $65 billion in the bank. I would argue that that's profit. They sell books. They don't sell them at cost. You go into the student bookstore, none of those books are at cost. They don't get them and then sell them for exactly what they get them for. They don't give them away. There's a million arguments to be made. How about the amount of money that they're charging for tuition compared to the education they actually get? So yeah, they might be tax exempt now. I hope it goes away. Harvard's become a laughing stock. Look, if you were a Jewish person and you were in Harvard in the last year, I don't envy you. You have been harassed. You have been attacked verbally. You have been protested. Sometimes you've been run out of class. A lot of different things. But Harvard did nothing to protect them. And then when the Trump administration said, hey, you got to start making some changes, they said no. Trump pulled, I think, $9 billion a year? But why are taxpayers giving any money to a private college? Why? Public college, sure. If you go to a state college or a city community college or whatever, okay, that's fine. They can be tax exempt. They can get taxpayer dollars because they're owned by the city / state / county. They're taxpayer funded. That's a different argument. They don't pay taxes anyhow because they're a state entity or a city entity. Private universities, why are they not paying taxes? We talk all the time, on the left anyhow, about billionaires. Jersey Joe just beat me to it. God damn it, Jersey Joe. But it's true. We talk all the time, or the left does, about billionaires having to pay their fair share and pay their taxes, yada, yada, yada. Why doesn't that apply to private universities and colleges? I'm waiting for an answer. Because they're nonprofit. Okay. And why are they considered nonprofit? Why do they qualify to be nonprofit? I don't have an answer because I think it's bullshit. But I'm waiting for people to actually give me the answer. And not because they filled out the paperwork. I mean, actually give me a reason why they should qualify. Why should they be the same as, say, a soup kitchen? A soup kitchen that's a legit nonprofit, where all of their funding goes back into the people they serve. You're telling me all that funding that Harvard gets goes back into its students only? No. No, it goes back into the professors like Pocahontas who are getting $1 million a year. Red cup alert. It goes back into, I'm sure, ridiculous studies. Maura Healey, the governor of Massachusetts, where I had that oaf. I had a video of that oaf here somewhere. Oh yeah. This is her response to the issue with Have. Oh yeah. Add to stream, Sean. There we go.
This is bigger than Harvard. I mean, Harvard is a wonderful institution, has contributed so many things when you think about advancements in health, advancements in science. It's also the case that there are a lot of colleges and universities around the country who are doing this, who are also having their funding cut. I was on a campus today, Ari, where I learned that faculty members are being let go. They've had to cancel, rescind offers for students who are engaged in postdoc and scientific research and study programs because.
Well, maybe they can learn how to code. Look, I'm not saying there's not great private universities out there, but if you're so great and you have, I don't know, a $56 billion endowment, and you actually start using that endowment and actually start managing your funds so you're not spending more than you're receiving through tuitions and endowments, maybe you can cut back on the avocado toast. I don't know what Harvard can do, but I can tell you what it doesn't need to do is get a tax break and receive taxpayer money. That's what I know it does not need to do. And it's just ridiculous. But I'm going to share a story. I'm going to get to that last. That'll make you happy. It made me happy. Let's see. RFK today, for those of you who don't know, my oldest son's autistic. So anytime there is a story about autism or research into autism and stuff like that, I pay attention because it's important to me. I said before, my son is one of those autistic kids that you probably wouldn't know he's autistic unless you spent a whole lot of time with him. Then you'd be like, oh, okay, now that makes sense. So RFK today was talking about autism and how they're trying to launch an investigation into the cause of autism, which, by the way, this is one of those things. Look at who pushes back against these investigations, and that tells you everything you need to know. But as he was presenting his case, he said, and I quote, and these kids who will never pay taxes, they'll never hold a job, they'll never play baseball, they'll never write a poem, they'll never go on a date, and many of them will never use a toilet unassisted. And people got so angry at that statement. Was RFK talking about 100% of autistic kids? Absolutely not. Was he talking about the 25% who are nonverbal and not able to take care of themselves? Yes. That's who he was speaking to. The most affected. And anybody who looks at this and says, "Oh, this is a bad thing. We shouldn't be doing this." Or why is he saying such horrible? I saw another parent who said, "My kid's autistic. I can't believe you're saying this. He's going to pay taxes yet." Yeah, there's a reason why it's called on the spectrum. There is a spectrum with autism. From the very, very high functioning autistic to the extreme cases. The high functioning autistic may need help, may need a little of assistance, but by and large will be able to live within themselves. They might need a little help. They might need some additional help. As you go up the spectrum, the help gets more and more and more. Clearly, when he's making his point about the 20% who are nonverbal, the 20% who always have to have around the clock care. Because they are the most at risk. They are the most needy. They are the only ones, not the only ones, but they are the group that need the most help. But researching how they got that way is just as important so we can maybe stop it in the future. And I'm not going to get into my theories as to why or how or anything like that. This isn't the time and place for that. And frankly, I'm not educated enough to really talk about that per se. I can give you my opinions, but that's neither here nor there. But the simple fact of the matter is the amount of kids who have been diagnosed with autism in this country has skyrocketed. Now, a couple things that they've done, they've added Asperger's. They've taken away the term Asperger's and they've just added that into the autism spectrum. It used to be much more boiled down, and now it's just kind of an umbrella statement. Oh, you're autistic. Yeah, but Elon Musk is autistic. Technically, he's got Asperger's. 10 years ago, it was Asperger's. Now he's just autistic. They've blended it together, which I'm not thrilled about because it helps identify the level of care. And I'll tell you right now, we've run into this with my son where he probably would have what's known as Asperger's if they didn't change it. And now he's stuck with the branding of autistic, and it bothers him. And we're working through that. He's 14, and we're trying to get him there because he deserves it, and he's a great kid and love him to death, and he's had his challenges. But that having that label has bothered him. So when I tell you I take this personally, I do. I don't agree with those autistic parents who are upset because he was talking about the most at-risk group within the autism spectrum. Certainly, I'm fully supportive of an investigation. But don't take everything as I don't take anything like that like he's talking to me specifically. Oh, he mentioned autism. He must be talking to me. No. It's a group. So calm down. It's okay. Let this play out. Let the investigation happen. I'd love to know. For my son's sake, for my sake, I would absolutely love to know. All right, a couple things to laugh about, or one thing to really ponder about, and then something to laugh about. Here we go. Ponder about. David Hogg posted this. Everyone in our party says that they want to start winning again, and they do, but that simply will not be possible with our current set of leaders. Too many of which are asleep at the wheel, out of touch, and ineffective. As a result, and this is the important part, folks, there are likely going to be stories in the next few days and weeks about me and leaders we deserve that will aim to destroy my reputation in order to weaken this effort. Many of them will be lies. Many of them will be contortions of the truth because people want to maintain the status quo, even though it's not working. We cannot afford to do that. We're going to let that happen. We're not going to let that happen. What stories could they be talking about? The new Grand Wizard, the Grand Poobah, the leader, one of the leaders of the Democratic Party, David Hogg. It makes you wonder. It makes you wonder what he knows is about to drop about him in public that is probably going to end his public career. Anytime you get out ahead of something like that before it hits the newspapers, that's bad. That's normally bad, unless it's completely ridiculous. And if it is, I'll admit it. If they're like, oh, I don't, he grew a third arm or some insane statement. Oh, okay, fine. But given what we know about these young, famous Democrats, I have a feeling it's going to be something that's going to be icky and you're not going to like it. And I'm not either. Lastly, I love to see Democrats eat their own. And here we go. A Bernie rally. There's Bernie up there. And he, being a socialist, Democrat, communist scumbag, was not liberal enough for these ladies and gentlemen.
Oh my God.
Can you imagine? You have the most liberal senator on stage talking about taking the country even more liberal.
Oh my God.
And he was not liberal enough for these lunatics. And they try to overtake and go even. I love it. I absolutely love it. This sort of thing warms my heart because it really shows you the utter disarray the left is in, and it will continue to be in. That was the theme for most of the show tonight, is that the left can't learn, the left isn't smart enough to get out of their own way, and the left just keep fucking up. And Senator John Kennedy said this is, when your enemy is beating themselves, you continue to let them do it. And I think we absolutely should. Folks, that is it from me. It was a quick hour. Thank you for everyone who was in chat. All the chatters, you guys were fantastic. Thank you for hanging to the end. Please like and subscribe from wherever you're following. And look, share it. Share it to your friends if you like the show. If you don't like the show, jump in chat room, jump in the comments, tell me why you hate me. And I think it'll be wonderful. I look forward to it. I'll be back next Monday night, 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 on the East Coast, just like I am every Monday night. Check out all the great shows on SHR and all the great shows on KLRN. That's it for me. Have a great rest of your week.